Hi everybody, my name is Corey Barnett. I'm the owner of Savur Outdoors. Savur Outdoors is an underwater rescue system that's designed to recover your lost fishing rods, action cameras, and fishing bows after you drop them in the water. So listen and follow along. I'm going to sit down at a table and we're going to put some retrieval devices on some broke off pieces of junk that we've gotten from a couple other different sources, just so that I can have it in front of me on the table and move it around freely and keep it in focus for you guys, so you guys can see everything up close. So follow along and let's go. Let's sit down at a table and do some of these. Alright guys, so when it comes to the tools you need for putting these on, I know this isn't the greatest lineup in the world to be showing you for working on fishing rods. But trust me, it's all going to end up being okay. And these are the easiest tools. These are the best tools to use for the job, okay? First of all, starting off, the pick is just used to, either pick this plug out, pull it out, and get to the salt bobbin. The utility knife is used to cut the cork or EVA off of it, and then your screwdriver is going to be used only in working with the retrieval device and screwing in the center screw that compresses the spring and sets the device. A Dremel tool in case you need to trim a little bit of your rod. Now, I want to talk about trimming rods for a little bit, and yes, I'm talking about cutting your fishing rod. We're only going to cut a little bit off the back end, and most companies that build fishing rods will use one blank and make it numerous different sizes. So and by doing that, they just get different lengths of rods. We're not going to change anything about the action of the rod. We're just trimming a little bit off the back to make this device fit. You'll never even know that you did it. So that's why the Dremel is. You don't have to cut all fishing rods either. I'll put that out there. And actually a pair of pliers and some masking tape. I prefer the cheapest masking tape you can find because it's the most porous. If you start getting into the painting, the really fancy painting masking tape, I guess you'll say, sometimes it has a lot of oils on it, and it can mess with the epoxy. But listen, if that happens to you, and the worst thing's going to happen is that thing's going to fall off and you have to re-glue it again. But it'll get loose, and you'll know it a long time before that happens, because the epoxy really takes over, and then you just take it off and change it. It's no big deal. I prefer using this. It's the most porous, and once the epoxy gets in here, it starts to get into the pores of this masking tape, and just becomes harder. You get a better bond. So those are the tools you need. Oh, and sandpaper, did I say that? And a drill with, I don't even know what size drill bit this is. This is probably, it's not 1/4 inch, because a lot of times when you pull the grip off, the epoxy that the company uses sometimes gets in the blank, and it causes a glue plug. And no big deal, you just drill through it. Some companies like to use a lot of epoxy. Some companies actually put counterweights in the back, so that's all stuff you kind of got to get through, because our center screw comes through and it protrudes into the center of the rod blank, just a little bit. So okay, what I've got here is a retrieval device, one of our retrieval devices, just like we ship them out in the packaging. This is what you'll see in stores too, but in the back there is epoxy, and what that's for is we're going to end up cutting the back ends of these fishing rods off and replace them with this retrieval device. The way this is designed is, this is a split grip, this is a full handle. The way I designed this is so that there's very little, so the transition is the same from the rod blank to the retrieval device. And the full handle, this is the full handle, and then this is the split grip. Okay, so for this first part, I just want to show you guys the directions that come with everything. I mean, we have pictures, and it tells you all the tools and everything you need to have for doing this job, front and back. It actually goes a lot quicker than what the directions look like, but we'll get started here with the first one. So this is a split grip, and I'm just going to take you guys from unboxing these things to onto the fishing rod. So once you take this thing out, you'll see it's in two separate pieces like this. So what I did is I've kind of got it in both hands. What I do is I kind of take it and I put the screw that's in the middle. This is the screw that's going to compress the spring, and I just put it on that top hole, and then I take it and I pull it down a little bit, and then you're only going to be able to get one, maybe two turns on this screw before it tightens up so tight that you can't tighten it anymore. While you have it pulled down like this, because see, I mean, the spring it's a pretty heavy spring, but you can still pull it down just a tad bit to give yourself some room, and then just begin to tighten it down. Okay, now as you're tightening it down, you're gonna want to keep an eye on your line tie. It's tied right in here. Tightening it back down. I take and I'll watch my line as it goes down here. Oops. And here's where I want you guys to be careful when you're using these power screwdrivers. When you get down here, go real slow. Go real slow, and once it stops, I actually hold the body of it kind of loosely in my hand. So when the screw itself bottoms out, everything bottoms out at the same time, and it'll just turn in my hand, so you don't have to try to over tighten it. And that's tight. So there's spring pressure on there. This thing is not coming loose. The screw that you put in there is cutting threads so that there's it's not like it's going to loosen up it's not going to loosen up at all. So just leave it be. Don't try to over tighten it. When it stops turning, just stop. And the directions say to leave it halfway open, like in this position here. So when you guys get the directions will say leave it in this position because so that you don't glue the screw in place in your rod, but it doesn't matter. So, but for a long time now, I've just been screwing them all the way down, and this is how I install them. Full handles are a little bit different than split grips because you've got to be kind of precise on the cut you make down here, and getting to it is kind of a little bit of half the battle. First thing you want to do with a split grip, you want to start by cutting it. You're not going to measure anything right now. I'm going to start by cutting this back portion off, and the very end of it is kind of a thick. Usually don't have to make too many cuts in this because it's just a cap. You take it and rip that off. Sometimes when you get in here, you can use your pliers, and don't grab the blank ever. You know, I mean, with your pliers, because you can do some damage to it. But as you can see right here, I mean, they've got a little bit of tape on there. We're just going to copy what they're going to do. We're just not going to use what they're using. Kind of clean that up a little bit. So what I'm wanting to do here is I'm wanting to make a cut
1 3/8
from the end of this blank. And sometimes this will be rough, and you need to either use a piece of sandpaper, or sometimes I even use just my blade and just kind of take and because you can cut through the epoxy, and you can take and make that level, or not level, but flush. I'll say okay.
1 3/8.
There's one. I'm gonna roll it around a little bit. I usually try to do 3 or 4 measurements. Do another one on this side. And you guys really can't see my marks on here, but that's okay.
Cut down from the end of the rod blank 1 3/8.
So once I get there, what I want to do is I want to take my masking tape, and I'm going to take it, and this will actually clean it too once you're done. I'm going to match up a couple of these lines. And what I want to protect the grip that I want to keep is what I'm doing. And I want to make this tight. So as I come around, I might even make 2 rounds on it. I want to make this as tight as I can make it, and as straight as I can make it. Because this, where you cut right here, is going to be your, I guess you call it the reveal. So I want to take all the cork off from here back. So when I start to cut the cork on this one, I'm not just going to start to cut down. What I want to do is I want to start making some slices into this thing this way. Okay, keep going around. Okay, now, since I'm all the way around, now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a couple swipes like this. Perpendicular, just like my split handle. I'm going to take this thing, I'm just going to pinch the cork. Okay, this one's going to be kind of stubborn, which is okay. Good for a demonstration video. And as you take it off, as you get closer to this, you'll see that it just, where you cut, it's just going to start breaking off from it. And you'll have a nice clean, there we go. You just have a nice clean cut from the old cork to the new cork. Kind of get it cleaned up. Now, what I want to show you on these is you want to get as much of this cork that's up here against the bottom of this thing up against the base so that it's not trying to, it fits up better. So what I like to do is I like to come in here and I like to dig just a little bit of this out along the bottom, because this is all going to fill up with epoxy again anyways. It's not going to be and then see how much better it's going to fit in there. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll take a little bit of sandpaper to this, and we will be ready for the next step. Okay, so like I said, I like using these emery pads because I can get a good grip on them. You don't have to use it. I mean, it's not, you can use any type of sandpaper you want, but it just seems to be a little bit easier. And I'll grind these off pretty good. Like I said, in the other one, the rougher it is, the better. The rougher it is, the better, but the bigger your rod length, the more of the stuff you have to take off. And if it's smooth, you're still all right. It's no big deal. But just make it easier for yourself. I've got my length right, and everything will fit on there perfectly. You're going to have a little bit of a transition here, but I'll give you guys some options on. I'll show you guys some different things on what you can do to make that nothing. But this is something right here that you would never feel. I mean, it actually kind of gives you a little bit of a grip. But from here on out, it's just kind of the same as the split grips. I'm going to start with some tape, and I'm going to start building it up just like I would the split grips. Right in the center here, I'm going to start. And there isn't as much blank showing on either side. So I'll show you a little bit. If you guys want to do a little something different here, I'll show you kind of how I remedy that sometimes. And as you can see, I left this other tape up here on the other cork, and that's so when I go to epoxy it, that I'm not getting it all on my cork. I'll just leave that on my thumb. Okay, now we're good, finally. And sometimes the tighter the better, because with the tape, because you just want this thing to be as solid as possible. And that's going to be how it looks. So dry fit's done. Ready for epoxy. Okay, we're ready for epoxy, and well, one of the things I told you is that sometimes I like to have some more of this rod blank showing, so I'm actually epoxying to the rod blank. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the epoxy is going to go through this, become part of this masking tape. It's the cheap masking tape. So, but if you want to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm just going to cut around again a little bit. It doesn't matter really how far. I usually like to take about a quarter of it or so off. Then if you just take and cut down from your line right there, you're going to be able to just peel that off. And this is time sensitive, so if you once you get to this point, man, you're committed. So go ahead and put a big glob on here. Just put this on put a bunch on. Get it down, and this is where it's going to squeeze out, is right down here. So you want to get a bunch down in here because you want this to also be a glue point. So you want as much epoxy up on top. I mean, I'm using this whole double bubble epoxy on this one. Okay. Now, what I've also got here is I've also got my alcohol wipes back out. Again. And I got running epoxy everywhere. So we're just going to go. And it's actually the tape when you're dry fitting it is a little bit sticky, but once you put the epoxy on there, man, it just slides right on good. So I used a printed body this time. I shouldn't have, and like I said, okay, you're gonna get a bunch of it coming out, but this one's got a good bond to it. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and see the epoxy coming out, see how much would have been in your cork if you didn't put this tape on here. So I'm gonna take it, I'm just gonna clean this up. Got two of them in here, and if you use a bowl like this, you can rinse these alcohol wipes out, alcohol filled napkins, I guess. In anything, make sure and give it one more good press. Make sure you got everything, all the excess out of it, because in about 3 or 4 minutes, it's going to be stuck. And then you can take a little bit of epoxy and you can fill that in, kind of like a fillet or a chamfer. And it'll once that epoxy dries, it'll be slick as can be, and it looks good if you do it right. It looks good, but I mean and a lot of people don't even mind this little bit of transition. I mean they actually like the feel of it, because when they're grabbing a hold of the back of the rod, it feels good on there, and they've got a little bit of a lip to grab a hold of. So, but most of the full handles are not this small in diameter. This was actually a pretty small rod, but still a good transition, and now she's retrievable. So if you have any questions, contact us at sales@SavurOutdoors.com. Thanks for watching. Catch a fish, Pete.
Yeah, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.